Hey everybody, and welcome to Twin Talk, a video discussion show where twin brothers Chris and Kevin drink and draw. We'll talk about comic books, movies, and all things pop culture. We are your hosts, Chris Hart,
Kevin Hart,
and today we're going to be talking about Spider-Man 2.
Stick around to the end of the episode to see how our drawing of Doc Ock came out. And if you like what you see, subscribe to the channel for more content.
Coming hot off the trails of Spider-Mania with the release of the live-action film in 2002, Spider-Man, Sam Raimi took up the job again of directing the sequel. This movie is perfection.
Yeah, flawless. 10 out of 10 for me.
It still holds up upon rewatch. It's still dated here and there, but overall, this movie...
There's payphones in this movie. Yeah,
there's payphones. There's, like, even like the CGI and stuff. Like, it's very old school filmmaking still. Mm-hmm. You know, it's 20 years, almost 20 years ago. But it still holds up as a story with character development.
Easily the best Spider-Man movie, though. It's crazy to me that, just in comparison to the new movies with all modern technology, that this movie, 17 years ago, I believe now it is, that train sequence still looks so much better than half the stuff we see in today's Spider-Man movies.
This movie just has something about it. It's just a perfect story of Peter Parker down in the in the dumps. Sam Raimi really understood that the character Peter Parker shines his brightest when he's pushed down and down. And this movie is perfect as a Spider-Man movie, in my opinion, because of all those factors. He's losing the girl of his dreams to another man.
He's got erectile dysfunction.
Yeah. His best friend hates him because he knows Spider-Man and doesn't want to give up his identity. Mm-hmm. And he killed his father, so-called, in the first one. And then his Aunt May is losing the house and stuff. There's just a lot going on.
A lot of personal stakes, yeah. Yeah, I prefer this movie as opposed to the original one. The original one's great, the first two. But it doesn't waste any time because now we've brushed over the origin, so we don't have to spend any time on that. It's still a faithful adaptation to the comic books. There's a lot of comic book things. Obviously, Spider-Man's rogues, all of them are like products of science gone wrong, right? Mm-hmm. Another believable villain with Alfred Molina as Otto Octavius Doc Ock.
I was saying upon rewatch, the scene where he has the demonstration with the arms and how everything goes wrong with the fusion reactor. Like, it's just such a good origin story for this character. The same way that I enjoyed Norman's transformation into the Green Goblin in the first movie. They were two very, almost like horror, horror-esque origins. Like, the way that Sam Raimi helms the filmmaking of this is, like, he puts you into that situation where you're just, like, things are going wrong. People are screaming. Like, even when the wife is screaming when the glasses come into her eyes. That's just such a Sam Raimi flavor right there. Yeah. Even Spider-Man 3, I love the origin of Sandman. It's just not a great movie, but we'll talk about it. The origins he does for all these villains are really well done. Mm-hmm. Let's briefly talk about Joe's 29-minute guarantee. This movie starts off with Spider-Man on a pizza delivery. I got pizza last night just to watch the movie with it. I just remember being like, God, I love this scene when he's got to deliver those 8 extra large deep dish pizzas. And 42 blocks in 7.5 minutes, or your ass is fired. So
it starts off right away. Intense stakes.
Yeah, which is impossible. There's no way in hell you can go 42 blocks.
Even on the motorized cart in New York City, no way.
Thank God he's Spider-Man. I mean, he even shows up late as Spider-Man because he does the right thing and he saves the kids.
That's what I love. Like Sam Raimi's direction.
It's just so fun, though.
It starts off with the stakes. He's about to get fired. You see even all the quick cuts of the doors opening of him in the street, him looking at the clock and the time, everything. Then the kids in danger with the bus coming. All of it is just all the gears are turning. And Sam Raimi really does another great job with the Spider-Man sequel.
It just starts off with him, looking at, MJ's a model at this point and an actor. So he's looking at her every day while he's living this mundane existence. The dude lives in basically a 5x5 jail cell, and he's paying rent or lack of paying rent. Also, I wanted to shout out too the beginning of this movie to Alex Ross's paintings to basically just give you a recap of the first movie are so beautiful.
Complemented with Danny Elfman's
score and Alex Ross's art in those opening credits is amazing.
We were talking about it last time about the rumor of Jake Gyllenhaal being casted as Peter Parker's Spider-Man. This was actually the story, is that Tobey Maguire was in the role of Seabiscuit with the horse racing movie. Never saw it, never wasted my time. But he got injured during the production of that movie, and he was on the fence of returning with his injury. And thankfully he made it in time to play the same role, which I like that because I don't want to see different actors. I like the continuity. Yeah, it was good to see Tobey Maguire back, and we were talking about it earlier. the personal stakes. There's so many good life lessons in this movie that I still carry with me today. All of it, the discussions with even the villain in the beginning when he's still good and redeemable about love, Aunt May, about dreams and what you really want and who you want to become in life. All of it is just firing.
And all that culminates in the "I'm back" scene where he jumps off the building. And,
where he injures his back.
Like, his back, yeah.
Ironic enough what we're talking about.
That's a great scene, too, because it's like, it gets you so hyped. You get so, like, pumped up for it. And then it's a comedic beat where he falls and, like, and then he destroys his back and then touches the car. All the alarms go off.
Because I like those moments in the movies where the hero has to kind of, like, earn it again, where we spend a lot of time with him without being Spider-Man, because there's so much more Spider-Man in this movie, which is what I love. The action is just so much more thwipple. But
the guy in the elevator.
The guy in the elevator with the pitch.
Which is a deleted scene, not even in the theatrical.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is I watched Spider-Man 2.1 upon rewatch.
There's a lot of cool stuff that they like just took out.
Cool
just like
stuff?
snippets here and there.
Cool stuff, but I do prefer the theatrical cuts.
Really?
Yeah, because it flows better.
The first movie to me, like, especially rewatching these two, like, so much later on in life, the first one to me it felt like more fun. Like, it was just a more fun ride. It's quick. That you get the origin, you go along the journey, and then you get the big. It's like a very like perfect ABC superhero movie to me. Very
simple.
Fun. Yeah, this movie, like you said, like it doesn't waste time. We've established the character. We get right after it, but there is like a lot more life lessons to be learned. It's very like dramatic, emotional stakes and personal stakes to the characters in this, and that's when comic books are my favorite. Is when you don't just get like the action. You want to read these things for life lessons, moral lessons. I think comic books can teach you life lessons, and I feel like the film should do the same thing too. It shouldn't just be all action and an adventure. Like
you should
walk away with some sort of like you want to be a better person. You want to be like these heroes, and that's what this movie gets perfectly. Is that you want to step up to the plate and be a better person despite your life going to crap for it because it's just the right thing to do. And like Peter's the perfect example of that, especially in this movie.
That's what I appreciate, is that his absence away from being in the suit of Spider-Man, his life was kind of like going a little bit better.
For him, yeah.
For him personally, but it was like kind of selfish. He was letting people die in the burning building. Not letting,
dudes eating foot-long hot dogs.
Yeah, while people are getting beat up in the street.
Listening to raindrops.
And it just shows him like his call to duty, the whole Uncle Ben, his like call to responsibility. Mm-hmm. And he was kind of dodging that. And that's why I like that little time to breathe without him in the suit. Because then once he does become Spider-Man again, it's more impactful. And you're like, let's go.
Yeah. And even like, especially his love life too. Like you could see that he's just like suffering because he wants to tell Mary Jane that he's Spider-Man, that he loves her, but he can't because he's trying to protect her. And I hate her in this movie, especially on rewatch.
Throughout the entire trilogy, pretty much.
Yeah. But like, she was okay I like her in the first one. She gets worse in this, and then the third one, like, I'm glad he hit her at the end.
I'm gonna cry.
That's the one I actually felt bad for the most. I was like,
no, it was devastating. Like, we'll get into Spider-Man 3 I can go on a rant right now. It just ends on such a weird note. What a weird way to end the trilogy. Mm-hmm. But this movie, like, when he fight, like, that's why you root for him more at the end when she leaves John Jameson on her wedding day, which sucks. But she leaves him to go pursue Peter. You root for it because this guy is finally getting what he deserves after putting himself, second and helping others for so long. And it's like, okay, being Spider-Man can come with these benefits, with the balance that he figures out at the end of this movie.
I was confused because at the end of the first movie, when she's like touches her lips and she realizes the kiss, I thought she knew then. And I remember being on such a cliffhanger, like, oh my God, she knows Peter's Spider-Man. But I guess it was just like a feeling of like,
it's just kind of like a nod to what if, like what could happen. Like I think she definitely like had a feeling about it. Yeah, this movie obviously cements it.
Yeah.
He takes his mask off and says,
I like
"Hi."
that. This is really heavy.
Yeah, that's a great scene too.
It was kind of odd, even in the beginning, watching it as a kid, and even now I'm still like, what a weird direction to go with like the superhero erectile dysfunction when he's like losing the webbing.
He's like losing his powers. Yeah.
He can't crawl on walls anymore. I guess
and
it
the
was
doctor's just like, yeah, bro, you ain't focusing.
Pretty
like,
much.
Okay, I
mind
guess
over
that makes
matter.
sense.
Yeah, stress can get you down. I understand that, but I mean, come on, you're Spider-Man.
One out of 4 men, 1 out of 4 Spider-Men can't function properly.
Again, but it did, I guess, lead to a very like impactful second half of the movie. So let's get into the villain, Doc Ock, Alfred Molina's Otto Octavius. I felt so bad for the guy because he was so likable. He was having tea with his his very captivating wife, in my opinion.
She was very supportive.
Yeah, very supportive, very charismatic. Whoever that actress is, there's something about her. Even as a kid, and now I'm like, man, there's just something about that glow in her eye that gets taken out by a shard of glass.
They set their little marriage up. Their little marriage. Obviously, they've loved each other since T.S. Eliot and in college. It's just in a few minutes you set up Otto and his wife as like this great marriage, and that's why it's so devastating when like he does this demonstration and she gets killed. It's like a tragic thing for him, and then the arms take over him and he's not thinking straight. But also too, the scene where Otto ends up in the hospital and they have to cut off the arms. That is such even like my wife Olivia was watching it last night. She came home. She was like, "That's pretty scary." I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "That really is like that." Like he comes from a horror background, Sam Raimi, and that scene specifically is just dripping with his swag. All of his flavors, his style are in that scene, and it is really terrifying when like
she's scraping her nails.
Yeah, when all the screams, the fingernails getting scraped, when the guy is trying to cut it off, with a saw, and then the other arms go to defend him, and you just see all four POV of the arms ready to kill this guy.
Yeah, they did his powers very cool because they had like a mind of his own. They explained that with the inhibitor chip. So it was cool how they set up his origin, and the fact that they were kind of like a life on their own. I liked how sometimes it looked like they were speaking to him.
Yeah, even the noises they made.
They made like a hissing, like snakes. Yeah, snakes. It was very creepy.
Cool. Very cool take on the character. Another thing that I loved is how they incorporate the goggles of Doc Ock in like different ways. Like he's got the sunglasses, and then when he's doing the demonstration, he's got the fusion protection goggles on. I thought it was cool how they like incorporated the goggles, because it could be such a cheesy thing if you translate it wrong.
But it's his look.
It's what makes him an iconic villain, and I just thought they did such a good job with it. Because like when you read these comics and see the cartoons, you just dream of seeing them live action. And to me, this was like
one of the coolest looks.
Yeah, very very well adapted from comics to live action.
I also love his arc because you feel bad for the guy at the end. He sacrificed himself. He will not die a monster, you know what I'm saying?
You either die a monster or live long enough to see yourself 20 years in another movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And that gets me even more excited now when we see him in the No Way Home trailer. Yes. I cannot wait to see what they do with him.
When he was coming out of the hospital and he's like walking in the street, it's like lightning raining. And he's just his tits are hanging out. But then like he smashes the car. I remember seeing that in the trailer and just being like, I could not believe what I was seeing as a kid. Yeah. And then going to the theaters and seeing him, walking on the buildings. I was like, man, this is so believable. Even with the CGI of the time and even how it holds up, I was like, man, that is so cool looking. Like,
even though the CGI is a little bit dated now.
A little iffy at some parts.
It's still sick to see like the mix of practicality with the CGI. And that's why I could say it over and over again. I prefer this all day, every day, because you believe that these two characters are fighting each other.
It's almost like the Jurassic Park series, how the older films, where they had to, without modern technology, had to figure out, okay, how's this going to work with the animatronics, this and that. Stan Winston Studios, legends.
Yeah, definitely.
But then they would add the CGI when necessary, and they kind of like broke through with that technology. But now,
and the old ones look better.
The old ones look better, as opposed to like now with technology, we're getting lazy, and they're just like, oh, let's do this. But none of it is believable, and that's why I do prefer.
You can't touch
classic
it. You can't.
Films.
You feel like you can't. It's not a physical thing there. Yeah.
James Franco, can't stand the guy. But he does a decent job in this movie of playing like the down and out guy as well. I kind of felt bad for him because like he starts off with such short success. Like obviously his father died in the first one, and he's kind of doing well for himself. He's like
Osborn. So douchey though. Like when he's like on top here, he's got the glasses and the power suit. And he's like.
Then throughout the movie, his acting gets about as good looking as his perm is throughout this movie. And just that sequence of when he finds out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, he's just like, no. I was like, oh my God.
Unmask him, he's just like, no, can't be.
So bad.
Unbelievable. I can't believe this guy's a professional paid actor.
It was cool to see, though, all jokes aside, that they were setting up the Hobgoblin or like the New Goblin, whatever. It was cool to see how the natural progression of all these characters, all of it was just like flowing to a perfect trilogy, like you said, and then studio interference with the third one and just forced things.
So bad.
We'll talk about it. But it was cool to see this sequel improve upon the things that were in the original one. And that's why, to me, it's the best out of the three movies.
I even remember, like, once this movie ended, there was so many fan theories about, like, Harry becoming the Hobgoblin, and it's all right there. They set up everything, and I cannot stand that he becomes New Goblin, the snowboarding thing. I cannot stand that. Just give him the same suit, paint the little orange tint on the green.
Just give him a cloak.
Yeah, just give him a hoodie or paint some of it orange. Like, it's all right there. It's all going in that direction. I even heard a rumor that they were going to, like, make Harry Venom in the third one, which I thought would have been awesome. You know, like, obviously it's not comic accurate, but, like, for the way it was going. Because the studio wanted Venom in the third one.
They were like, give it Venom.
They were like, no matter what, Venom has to be in this movie. So why not make this, like, Harry hates Peter at this point. He thinks that he killed his father. And then the alien comes, and it was on Spider-Man, and then it goes to Harry, like... That would have been a perfect...
I see, yeah.
Instead of, like, the crappy Topher Grace Eddie Brock being pissed that he got fired for, like, crappy CGI Photoshop or whatever he did, you know?
Yeah, that's right.
Like, flagpoles. You know, like, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, we'll talk about that movie for sure.
You cannot talk about this movie without talking about the PlayStation 2 video game. That game is amazing. We spent hours delivering pizzas in that virtual world.
Groundbreaking experience right there.
But like in that game, you could like travel the city. You could jump from the Empire State Building, try to kill yourself, never succeed. We've all done it. Yeah,
it's rated E for everyone, guys. Chill out. That game is a legend in itself.
It's such a good game.
We're gonna talk about our favorite scene, but there's only one favorite scene in this movie.
The train, baby. The train. That thing is so iconic. And they, like you said, they still haven't touched a better action sequence.
Because it runs for so long, too. It breathes so well, that scene.
Joey Coco Diaz is in this movie. He's like, you want to get to him, you got to go through me. He was high on coke when he...
That's what I like, too, is that he gets revealed to the city, like, who New York's protector is. And they're all just like, it's just a kid, you know? And they all kind of rally up. New York rallies a lot throughout this entire trilogy. I don't think they would in real life. They just probably spit on him and walk away. Post it on social media, like... Guy dies trying to save the city.
I do like how in the first one and the second one, like the New York City attitude and spirit, everybody like helps Spider-Man out. Like that's cool.
I just loved every moment of that choreography, you know, CGI, practical, whatever it is in that sequence. All of it is so well crafted, so well visualized, and like you believe it. And even the other train coming on the tracks and having to back up. Doc Ock taking the passengers. Every
a lot of close calls that you just like, ooh, you know.
There's so many things like, you know, on the edge of your seat moments of this movie that is so incredible to watch. Final grade, 10 out of 10 for me. I know it's 10 out of 10 for you. Yeah. I think across the board, every comic book Spider-Man fan will say this is the perfect Spider-Man movie. What did you guys think about Spider-Man 2? Are you excited to see Alfred Molina as Doc Ock again in Spider-Man No Way Home? If you hate this movie, if you don't want to see that movie, unsubscribe right now. Because it's not what we're about.
To us.
We don't need that kind of hate in our life. Just
take
kidding.
Your negative energy and go watch Spider-Man 3.
Actually, I can't leave off this review without one talking about Alfred Molina's fade. Every time I go to the barber, I ask for, let me get the Doc Ock Spider-Man 2 special. Dude had the illest fade. And two, can't leave this movie without talking about, again, another incredible soundtrack. With Dashboard Confessional, Vindicated.
What an amazing soundtrack. You got Hoobastank, Yellow Card, Jet, Train, Maroon 5, Taking Back Sunday, the Ataris. What a soundtrack for this movie.
So what we got so far? Spider-Man 1 and 2's in the books. We're going to go over Spider-Man 3, unfortunately. Probably going to roast it. Might be nice to see it again, though, so many years later. The Amazing Spider-Man Duology 2 we're going to watch as well. Into the Spider-Verse we'll rate. And then obviously we're going to see this weekend Venom sequel, Let There Be Carnage.
And also December, Spider-Man No Way Home.
All leading up to the big one.
Finishing 2021 in a big way.
So make sure you guys check out those videos. Anyways, that about wraps up today's episode of Twin Talk. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Comment below to join the discussion. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content. We'll see you next time. Peace! Spider-Pig does whatever a Spider-Pig does.
Lift me up, put me on the ceiling. I'll be Spider-Pig, just lift me up. If you can get me over your head, I'll be very impressed.